Hey boys, welcome back to some more NRL Supercoach 2021 season or pre-season discussions and analysis here. We're going to be going through the back row, second row options, and pretty much like every other position, it's a big one. There is so many options. And probably, I would say the second row probably is the most amount of quality options, and I do think for the most part you can't really go wrong with who you select. I think a big factor is who you select on your bench, the cheaper options to potentially make you a lot of cash. That's probably the big turning point, because the top ones, Cameron McInnes here, obviously with the drama, and now he's signed for the Sharks for next year. I wouldn't. I personally am. I'm personally not going to go McInnes. There's definitely a temptation, but I don't necessarily think Anthony Griffin is going to, hold a grudge or drop him or anything of that nature. But, potentially less minutes. They could try to bring a couple of young guys through to sort of take away from McInnes' minutes. Does he still play lock? There's a few question marks around McInnes now, I think, and I think he is definitely, even if you go him, I think he's definitely a good option, but I think there's safer options that are going to score just as well, and this man here, Angus Crichton, who I think, honestly, looking at the top second row, I actually think Crichton and Taumalolo are probably my two picks for the best second row. Taumalolo just, always consistent. Obviously a little bit down on last year, but still, I mean, he scores as well as anyone. Great player to watch in action. So there's always that benefit. And then Crichton, on the other hand, obviously he played less games, but he sort of, it's been a weird sort of transition to the Roosters, because he went over there as a rep player, one of the best forwards in the comp, and then he was on the bench, he was in and out, and I still didn't understand how he could not get a starting spot in the Roosters team when he first went over there. But now, surely this year he's going to get that full 80-minute back row spot for the whole year. And even more so now that Boyd Cordner is looking to miss a good chunk of the season. I think Crichton is a very good pickup. He is expensive, $670, but I think Crichton has, he's got the work rate, but I think he's also got probably the best upside out of any second rower. Taumalolo can sneak over for a try, and he's always got those tackle breaks and the odd line break. But I think Crichton he's got those 2-try games in him. He's got the offload. I think Crichton probably has the best upside, with the best work rate, in my opinion. Ryan Manson, also a pretty good option. He's always been one of the guns. Tavita Pangai Jr., I love Pangai Jr. He's probably, I was just talking about upsides, and probably him and Viliami Kikau are probably the two guys with the biggest upside in the back row. But Pangai, disciplinary is obviously a factor. And then also minutes. Again, the Broncos, it's sort of wait and see. I don't know, is Jordan Ricky going to get a spot there? Is Pangai going to go in the middle? Is he going to be sort of that X-factor sub on the bench? It's a bit up in the air when Pangai is going to play, because in my opinion, Carrigan should be the lock. Glenn should get a starting back row spot, and then Jordan Ricky, I personally think Pangai should be the other back rower, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jordan Ricky gets the spot over Pangai, and Pangai is pushed into the front row. I don't know. It's up in the air with him. Tohu Harris, also an underachiever. He's at the Warriors, so he's not really seen as many as the other players, but he always plays every game. He plays all the minutes. Just constantly turns it over. Again, like any of these other guys, you're not going to go wrong if you pick up a Tohu Harris. Isaiah Yeo, obviously last year he was a dual center. So he was an absolute gimme in the centers. As just a back rower this year, I don't know. Personally, I'm not going to go him. I think he'll still average around 60, high 60s, but I think last year was a breakout year for Yo. He's been good for a long time, but last year he just had a few more line breaks in him. He played, I think, more minutes than he usually does, and I don't necessarily think it's going to be a down year for him, but I don't think he's going to quite match last year. Cameron Murray, also a very good option here. Again, it's up in the air though, because Jai Arrow's come to the club. Is Murray going to push into the back row for Arrow to play at lock? I would imagine Murray's going to stay at lock, but again, it's sort of a wait and see just to see what team lists pull out. Carrigan and Triboyevic, I actually think these two guys are pretty similar. I'd probably lean towards Carrigan just because I think he has just a higher work rate in terms of running. Triboyevic is more of that playmaker lock at the moment. But again, Carrigan, he had a breakout year last year. You know, most people picked him up when he was at that, what did he start at last year? Like 300k? So he had a stellar year. But again, for 600k, I just think there's better options than Carrigan and Triboyevic and even Nathan Brown. Then we get down here, David Fafita. So I mean, it's going to be hard not to pick up David Fafita. I mean, 560. He had an injury-riddled season with the Broncos last year, and I think if the Titans are going to win, if they're going to go well this year, it's going to be on the back of him and Big Tino rampaging for the club. And I think Fafita is in for a big season. Surely he's coming back nice and fresh and fit, so I think Fafita is in for a huge year. You know, you can definitely, we'll get to a few other guys who could be a little bit of a pod move because everybody has Fafita, but I just feel like if you don't have him, you risk falling behind. Not by a lot, but I think you could fall behind. Maguire, Frizzell, never really, I mean, averaging well, but I never really guys you would sort of look at. Jazz Tavanga, obviously very, very solid. It's sort of, again, with the minutes up in the air, with okay, I'm back. Apologies for, there'll be a little bit of a cut in the middle of this video. I had to go take care of something. I can't even, I think what were we talking about? I think we were just talking about Jazz Tavanga, right? Jazz Tavanga, obviously a very good option. I think, again, I don't think I could start with Tavanga just because of the Warriors have recruited very well in the forward pack, so I'm not sure how many minutes Tavanga is going to get. I mean, they do look a lot better when he's out there, but he's had injury riddled seasons for a few now, and I wouldn't be surprised if they just cut it back slightly. Tarpany, Leilua, Barnett, these three guys are all fairly similar. All three with decent upside. Again, I've never really, I mean, Tarpany in the past has been a gun, and he fluctuates so much throughout a season. Like, he'll be as down as low as like 300, and then he'll shoot up to like 600. And he finished the year pretty well, obviously averaging a tick over 60. But, yeah, Tarpany, minutes are always a concern. Like, he just, randomly, he just won't play many minutes. He does cop the odd suspension, so he's always a risk. Luciano was a good pickup last year, but I think he's probably priced accordingly, and I don't think he's the best option for the price. And same with Barnett. I think he's solid, but not anything too special. Viliame Kikau, I talked about with Pengai Jr. Honestly, he's starting at a pretty cheap price. I'm very tempted with Kikau in the forward pack. I just think he didn't finish the season as well as probably a lot of people thought. He can go on just incredible runs, and the start of the year could be a good time to pick him up because, you know, should be fresh, should be fit, raring to go. And same with guy here, James Fisher-Harris. Fisher-Harris for a long time, and I actually think I probably talked about him in the front row discussion, but I think he'd be a good one to pick up in the front row for 500, a tick over 500k. Yeah, I think Fisher-Harris is very, very tempting in that prop spot. For Tala Mariner, Fatala Mariner is actually an interesting one. Also with Alex Twal here. Alex Twal was tremendous. I probably talked about him in the front row as well, so I won't talk about him too much. But Fatala Mariner, obviously with Dean Pay, all like the Bulldogs forwards were just a no-go. You weren't sure of minutes. Their attacking play was awful. With Trent Barry going to the club with a lot of new recruits, I think they will have more emphasis on attacking footy. And Fatala Mariner, a couple of years ago, he was one of the standout back row options in Supercoach. He had that decent work rate for an edge back row, and then he had that attacking upside, breaking the line. He had an offload. So at 520k, I mean, Fatala Mariner is not a bad shout over someone. I think it's probably I think he would be a good pod pickup instead of like a David Fafita. It would be tough to go instead, but not a bad shout for sure. Then we have the big boy here, Tino. Again, I probably think you would pick him up in the front row more than the second row. But it probably wouldn't matter too much. I don't know. I probably will start with Tino in my team, but yeah, there's so many options, and the 500k, it's definitely underpriced for what he can do, but yeah, it's a little wait and see for me. I don't think he's a must-have. I know a lot of people are probably going to put him in as an absolute must-have. I personally don't think so. I do think Fafita is a better option if you were going to choose one or the other. Also, Elisa Katoa had a breakout year last year. I think he can only get better, so I think for his price is pretty solid. And then a lot of these guys, you're getting down to, guys that average around 50, you probably wouldn't pick him up. Liam Martin is a really interesting one. At the moment, he's got that starting spot, well, predicted, but the problem is that, obviously, Isaiah Yeo is going to be lock, and then Kikau is definitely going to get one spot, and then you got Kurt Caple and Liam Martin. Now, both those guys would be starters at a club, but who's going to get the minutes? So I feel like you can't really go either of them, but Liam Martin, I mean, he's got a really good Supercoach game, but it's just the minutes and the position, it's just a little bit iffy. Solomona, again, I mean, he's got the points per minute. I mean, when he's on the field, he scores incredibly, but he's not a guy that's going to play huge minutes. So you can't really go there, in my opinion. Jai Arrow, 470k, really underpriced for what he can do, obviously. But I think, well, he does have an injury as well, so he might miss the start of the year. But I'm not sure where he's going to play. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes into the front row, because I can't see Bennett shifting Murray back to the back row, and I think Arrow's best position is lock, but Cameron Murray's best position is lock as well, and I think Arrow plays better at front row than Cameron Murray does play at second row, if that makes sense. So I don't know. Arrow's tempting in that price, but I think it's, again, a wait and see on him. And then not too much else here. I mean, Kenny Bromwich, Lachlan Fitzgibbon, both these guys. So these guys, they both can have incredible years, right? So Lachlan Fitzgibbon a couple of years ago was like 600k. He was one of the tops because he scored tries. Last year, he barely scored at all. You could take a little punt on him and think that he could turn it around this year and get a few more tries with the Knights, getting back into a bit of form. Maybe you could take a punt on him for sure. Victor Radley. I think I would have talked about him at dummy half, and he is very similar. I'm very tempted with Victor Radley. Felice Kafusi is actually a similar one to like Lachlan Fitzgibbon and Kenny Bromwich. He's sort of gone downhill, Felice, in Supercoach. He was one of the absolute top echelon of back rowers, but I don't know, I guess his work rate has dipped a bit, doesn't score as many tries as he used to, so he seems underpriced, but I don't know, maybe this is sort of what he's going to average, is just around 50 nowadays. Very good player, but yeah, not really Supercoach relevant anymore, which is surprising. Toby Rudolph had a standout year last year. I think he's probably peaked. I don't think he's really going to get more points than he did last year. Kurt Caple, like I was talking about, he is, so we'll talk about him again probably in the center position, but he's predicted to get a bench spot, so obviously you can't go him, but yeah, I mean, if he was getting a starting spot, he would be a lock in at center, but yeah, just at the moment, Liam Martin and Kurt Caple are both sort of just, you can't really go there, unfortunately. Sitili Tupanua, he is very tempting. With Boyd Corner apparently missing probably like the first 10 or so weeks, Tupanua you would think would get that other back row spot. And at 400k, he's an absolute weapon. He's probably just slightly too expensive. I don't generally like going players around that 400k. They're either like, your mid 500s, 500, mid 500 to top of the line, or below 300k. That 400k is just an awkward position. He is, but yeah, definitely got the Supercoach game in him. He's got tries, he's got the work rate. Yeah, he'd be a tough one to leave out if he gets that spot for a length of time. And then we're going down here. Jack Murchie, he's obviously officially signed with the Warriors this year. If he gets a starting spot, actually he probably won't, but he's a good player. He's a very good player. It'll be interesting to see with that Warriors, because I mean they've signed Ben Murdock Masilla, Adam Fanua-Blake, Jack Murchie. They got a really good pack. Elisa Katoa, Jazz Tavanga, Tohu Harris. I think it's a strong forward pack for sure. Jack Bird. We'll talk about him more at center, because you definitely wouldn't pick him up at second row, but interesting. Anyone else peaks? Corey Waddell showed a lot of promise at the Manly side. Again, at the Bulldogs now, is he going to get more minutes? Is he going to get a starting spot? Probably not, but he is a very, very good player. One to keep an eye on for sure. And then going down here, here's the man here, Ben Murdock Masilla. Now, he's honestly straight into my team. I think he is an absolute must-have. At 330k, I think he's going to, he can either play lock, but probably an edge back row. He could play in the middle, like the front rower as well. But I think he's pretty much got a back row spot sewn up. But it is still a wait and see. But I think Murdock Masilla, his game is very suited to Supercoach. I mean, before he left to the Super League, when he was at the Tigers, he was an absolute wrecking ball. He went over to the Super League, was very, very good over there. Like he was, one of the standout forwards, and then he's come back now, and I think he's primed to have a big season for them, hopefully. So he's pretty much straight into my team. Corey Harry or Naira. I obviously some off-field issues with Naira. I don't know exactly what's going on there. So I don't know. He was sort of penciled in for me to be almost a certainty, because I was expecting him to get a starting spot, but I don't know what's going on with Harry and Naira now with off-field issues. I don't know, dude. It's again, wait and see what happens with him. But I mean, again, in the past he's been one of those top back rowers. So yeah, definitely want to see what happens with. And then Jordan Ricky, like I was talking about before with Pengai, I don't know. Is Jordan Ricky going to get that starting back row spot with Alex Glenn? Honestly, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he does and Pengai goes into prop. Wouldn't surprise me. So if that's the case, then Ricky is pretty much a certain pickup at 270k. It's not a complete cheapie, but it's pretty good, and he's going to make some good cash for sure. Then we go down here. Anyone else stand out? I think there's a couple other. I mean, Corey Oates. He's never really been a Supercoach sort of factor. He does a lot of work at wing, but I don't even know where he's playing this year, honestly. So not really anyone. Ryan James, so again 236k. Like he's he hasn't played the last like 2 seasons, probably 2 or 3 seasons now. Really, he's moved to the Raiders again. He's a fantastic player. I hope he can have a nice injury-free season. Is he going to get back to some of his best footy? I mean, probably not. With so many knee injuries, I just can't see him getting back to what he was. But at 230k, he's definitely someone. If he's picked in the team, like it'd be tough to leave out because he's going to make money on 230k. He used to be an absolute gun. He used to be an absolute gun, dude. Joe Stimson. Again, he went over from Melbourne team with good pedigree. I mean, he was a good player, but didn't really. I mean, he played 2 games. I don't know if he's going to get more games this year, but he's definitely one to again keep an eye on because he's definitely underpriced for what he can do. Sean Bloor had a bit of a standout year with his handful of games. He showed a lot of just a lot. Showed a lot of aggression, a lot of skill. So he's a star of the future, and I think he's probably going to get one of those bench spots as a bit of a cheapie. I don't know if he's going to get a starting spot, but he's definitely a guy that's going to make some good cash. You would expect. And then going down here, any absolute cheapies? I don't think there's any real ones that have stood out just yet. There's always a few. I know Ben Triboyevic. I know everyone has him in their team. I don't know if he's gonna get a spot in the Manly team, but everyone has him so far. He's sort of a cheapie to keep an eye on if he gets a spot. One of the Triboyevic brothers. And then that's pretty much it. So that's the back row options. Plenty of options. I mean, like I said, you can't really go wrong as long as your starting back row is one of the good ones, and then maybe if someone who's around 500k like Tino or Fafita, and you've got like a couple of the guns, you're gonna do pretty well. It's more who you pick on your bench to make that money for you. So that's the real clincher in the back row department. But yeah, hopefully you guys are enjoying the Supercoach preseason discussions here. Make sure to like and comment. Let me know what who your back row is sort of looking at the moment. Any sneaky pickups you're thinking of. But other than that, hopefully you guys are enjoying. I'll see you guys in the next one.